So in this video, I'm going to talk about the process a man goes through when entering into legal conflict in a separation. And this could be for custody, this could be for divorce and custody, but it is the whole aspect of that. Now, because of that, there is going to be a lot to this, and I'm going to be referencing to watch other videos of mine to keep up on it. But what I want to go into here is some of the mental struggles mixed with what you have to do. So if you don't do these things legally, it can be catastrophic, but mentally and emotionally, I may, want to walk the high road or love my soon-to-be ex or somebody who I can amend this relationship. And this is where we get into some of the heaviest signs of dysfunction. Now, I'd also encourage you to watch my other videos in the series where I'm talking about phase one, phase two. Phase one is that we're trying to save the marriage, save the relationship, bargain with different types of custody. And if we can do that, we obviously want to do that. In the second video, we talk about how it's crumbling apart and the mentality that comes into that. This is massive, and a lot of guys don't talk about this, and it just kind of sides into this like, I'm going to be alpha or I'm going to not be alpha or these types of things. When the situation of your life's work breaking apart, dissolving, failing, and in essence rebuilding and reforming, which is where we want to go, is a very complicated, it's one of the most complicated things because it is your life. So let's get to this. All of the advice in all of this, when you go through it, when you go through the process and start to begin the legal process, we're doing this so that you could be a better man, live a better life. Now, whether that is amending things with your soon-to-be ex, which then won't be your soon-to-be ex, or you end up separate, you need to understand being a father is one of the most important things. And the decisions you make now in setting up all of this legal stuff and taking steps forward are going to dramatically, one mistake in the beginning, are going to dramatically affect how you live, how your job, your reputation, your relationship with your child, the amount of days you have with them, your child support, your alimony, if you have that, how your property is divided, it can be very, very catastrophically screwed up by a lot of the common mentalities a guy goes through in this, which is like, man, I just don't care. I just want to see my kid. She could have whatever. I'm going to leave with the shirt off my back, or I'm going to fight for everything and be really aggressive. Both of those directions, if they're done, you're going to screw a lot up. You're going to end up in a lot of bad places, and you want to protect yourself from them. So in this process, where we're going to break down the mentality and the legal process and how those things go together, you need to really pay attention. You need to really pay attention, because the way I'm telling you to do it has to do with your future, and a future which you can't see yet, because the only thing you're thinking about is how you can still be a dad and hold on to your kid, and how your grit and force is going to do that. What I am trying to tell you is I'm going to show you how that grit and force could be articulated and moved in the right direction, so you can use that grit and force that holds on to your family in the right ways, so the legal process can go through in the right ways and you could be protected and not screw yourself over with your man stuff, which is either I'm out of here and she could have whatever and I just want to love my son, or whatever the situation is, or it's going to be I'm going to fight tooth and nail and nothing's going to get in my way. Be smart. That's why I make these videos. I am a man. I have lived a very crazy and intense life, but in that I've done a lot of manly stuff, but I've also coached a lot of manly men, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right. Please listen. So when is the right time to start the legal process and all of this? And the right time is at the moment the idea comes into mind. The moment the idea, like what we're talking about actually in video one, is that separation might happen. This is when we need to start researching the law. And we need to get into our heads right now as men, if you're going through this, that in order to consult with lawyers, look into legal procedures, look into my videos, other people's videos, look into different products that are going to help men be guided through this process, doesn't mean you're a bad husband. It doesn't mean that you're giving up on your marriage. It doesn't mean that you're giving up on your relationship. It doesn't mean that you're making the mother of your kids, if you're not married, somebody who's bad or evil. It means that you're going to do something which is necessary to guide your family. The fact that we don't talk about this in our culture and what men go through is really horrible, because it sets men up to have an either or thing, meaning there's no gray area. There's like this good guy that everything goes good, and to be a good husband means that everything's going good. And then there's this guy that turns evil and dark and mad and fights back and whatever because he breaks. Well, part of being that good guy is going through hard stuff, that gray area in between, and that's the immediate time to start with the legal process. Let's go into a few of those details of what to go through. Now, you're going to hear me say this and talk about this all the time, but what you need to do in researching, getting to know the law and understanding it is going to be three fundamental things. Number number one, you're going to have to go to your county's website or the county courthouse, wherever. You go to the county clerk's office and you get some sort of packet on how custody is determined. And if you're going through a divorce, how divorce is determined. Whatever county you file in, you're following those rules in that court system of how it works. And when you understand that, it's going to be a lot easier. Now, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you are not going to understand or doesn't make sense in all of this, but we need to get that we are entering into a legal battle as well as something that is an emotional battle. And hopefully we can resolve it all and there's not going to be any battle and all this sort of different stuff, but we need to start understanding what this is. So number one, go to your county's website. I live in Austin, Texas, so Travis County. What do I need to know about divorce? What do I need to know about custody? And we need to look at that website, that court, and what we're going to get and understand. Oftentimes there's a packet for this. Oftentimes there's a set of instructions. Divorce is generally this. It's going to be your property. It's going to be spousal support. It's also going to be custody if you have kids. And if it's just custody, it's going to be custody. It's going to be how much you make, how the best interest of the child is determined, who takes the kid to school, all these different things. And it's going to be in there and you have to know the rules that you're playing by. Okay, let's go to the second thing. The second thing that we need to understand in terms of the legal process in this, and especially of free or very inexpensive resources, is we're going to have to start interviewing lawyers. And we want to interview family law attorneys. Do not interview people that are for civil law or your attorney friend or get some sort of discount. Get a discount with the attorney that you need. And then we know all attorneys and family law attorneys can be fairly interesting, crazy people. And so we want to then learn the skill to find the right one. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't represent ourselves. This doesn't mean that we have to hire an attorney for $20,000 or anything like that. We're interviewing them to understand what our situation is. And we want to interview at least 3. We want to have a variety of people. They should have 15 years experience. I know actually an attorney I work with a lot has less than 15 years experience, but he comes from a firm with a bunch of people that I've worked with that have 20 and 30 years experience. So kind of works out. You want somebody that's not afraid to go to court. You want somebody that's not afraid to show up in front of a judge. You may not want to go to a judge, but this person should have their finger on the pulse of conflict in a divorce and custody battle, especially if you're going through that. Also, if you have other things, like if you have a lot of property, you need to go to an attorney that has litigated, been in court with a lot of property and whatnot and dividing that. If you have high conflict custody, you need an attorney that has litigated those things. That means he's gone in front of a judge or she's gone in front of a judge and argued in front of them. And those are the people you want to ask those questions with. Otherwise, you're going to get bad advice. You're going to get assumptions about the law, kind of like you're going to get the equivalent, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse of this video, but not somebody who's looking through your case, who's an expert, who can understand. In these consultations, sometimes you have to pay, sometimes they're free. If you pay and they're good, it's going to be so worth it. It's going to be so worth it. And I'll get into the cost of things in a little bit here, and I have other videos on that. Now, the third resource that we have in a divorce and or custody battle that we need to look at that is totally free is the county courthouse and watching cases. Now, if you've already filed, you're going to get assigned to a judge at some point, and you can go in and watch that judge's cases. Now, in some states, this is not allowed, but it's pretty rare. I forget if it was Vermont or Virginia, but somebody commented on my YouTube comments saying that it wasn't possible there. But in almost all of them, it's open to the public, and you can watch, and you're allowed to be there. And if you can watch your judge, that's even better. If you're not assigned a judge, you need to watch. Now, when you watch, you're going to come into a couple things. And I hear a bunch of men's activist guys talk about, you want to know how lopsided the family court system is? Go watch. You know, it's open to the public and you'll be horrified. Man, you're going to be horrified, but you're not there to be horrified. You're there to go, what can I learn about this? How can I understand it? How can I get it better? And how can I not screw up? You're also going to see people win. You're also going to see people organize their case properly. You're going to see people walk in there easily with less stress and get what they want. You're going to see people fight hard and win. You're going to see people fight in the wrong ways and completely lose. You're going to see people that are unprepared. And you then mimic and model the people that do what you want. And if you watch 10 to 15 cases, each case is going to be like 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes in front of a judge for a hearing. And there is some downtime and all that sort of stuff and breaks, and it's government stuff, so they take their time. But if you spend a couple days there, you're going to see a case that's exactly like yours. And I don't care how complicated you think your case is, you're going to learn a lot from that. That is probably one of the most important things. And these three things that I'm telling you are going to be the pieces of advice that I'm going to give to anybody who's in a high conflict battle that's already, they're coming into my groups on fire. These three things are going to help you massively. County clerk's office, or you go to their website and you look at whatever the instructions are for divorce and custody. Interviewing family law attorneys, and especially ones that have experience in going to court, as well as experience in cases similar to yours, and going to watch your judge. Do those things, man, you're spending at most a couple $100 on the consultation fees for attorneys, and you're way ahead of everybody else, men and women and even other lawyers in the divorce and custody fight. Now let's talk about some of the things that are going on mentally during this, because it can be traumatic and terrifying. The first 2 months of all of this, which is when you need to start with this legal stuff. Remember, we start with the legal stuff right away. The first 2 months of this are going to be something where you're going to be going through a whole bunch of stuff. I'm trying to work it out. I miss my kids. I feel like I want to die. Considering thoughts of self-harm, harming others, all these different things. Going through this process where you have to be organized and fighting legally, fighting for your life in so many ways. You're fighting to hold together your family, but at the same time, you're fighting to protect what's yours. And it's very hard to distinguish those things, and you don't need to determine it right now. But let me give you a couple helpful guidelines on what needs to happen in the legal process, in the mental process as we're going through the legal process, because this is tough and we want to get it right so that we can live a good life afterwards. And now this is something perhaps I did not emphasize enough in this, is that our goal is to live a good life afterwards. Our goal is to be a good father, whether we get back together and we become a whole family again, or we kick ass and divorce and custody and win everything, or we lose everything. Our goal is to be a good man and a good father. This is really important. Our future is very important. Now, this is interesting because in this time, when we're fight or flight, when we're trying to hold on to our family, we don't care about our future. We just care about the vision of our future family, of what it was. And now that's changing, okay? So this is really important. This is actually something that came from our calls the other night where we were talking about, is your relationship functioning? Is it failing, or is it failed? And if it's failing or if it's failed, we need to start looking at what that means. We need to start understanding that we need to divide from this in the grips of masculinity, being a father, being a partner, whatever your situation is, are very hard to break. And this is important because even if you're not married, you're not going through a divorce, there's none of this stuff happening, and you're just going through something that is a separation. Man, this is massive, massive to go through. This is really crazy. This blue herring just flew at me. Here, there he goes, there he goes, there he goes. Well, you can't see him. We'll turn the camera this way because I think it actually looks better in terms of lighting and color and the way the sun is and yada, yada, yada. Plus, the blue herrings flew that way, and maybe we'll catch a glimpse of them blurred out in the background. You know what? I'm going to change the aperture on this so that it's more in focus. Man, that is such a different look. So the mental process in all of this is really, really difficult because we need to do this thing where we compartmentalize and focus on our case. And we also are going through the heavy emotional struggles of, do I save my marriage? How do I better myself? How do I change in different ways? And then we jump to go, man, it's over. And I got to see that. And I got to put my foot down, and I'm going to work on myself, and I'm going to join the CrossFit gym, and I'm going to go into therapy and all this stuff. And then I'm going to go, man, but I have to choose my family. I don't care. This is very, very hard to navigate, and this is why I say things like men's groups are fundamental. Now, of course, I run a men's group, and part of the reason why I make these videos is to advertise my men's group, but my men's group works in massive ways. It will help you through this process. But let's say you don't have that. Let me just tell you a few criteria for this that are very important, extremely important in the situation, okay? You need to be around other guys, okay? That's step one. But you need to be around other guys who have been there and done that, who understand what you're going through. These are not the guys, these are not the family and friends that are saying, you just need to get over it, you just need to find your hobby, we know what you were like in these times. Those are all important. That's really good. You need that, and I want you to be a part of that, and don't get rid of those friends. But at certain times when you're going, man, I can't figure out what to do, and I want my ex back, or I need to see my kid, or I just need to reason with her, or I just need to pick up the phone and call her. I need to we're going through this court thing and attorneys are getting expensive and da 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 da, and I'm gonna pick up the phone and I'm gonna just have a discussion with her. You need to be around other guys to go through the particulars of that discussion, rather than your yes men and friends of family who aren't really prepared for that, or are just gonna say, man, yeah, you could do that. Just be yourself, just be open. No, you're in something that could enter. It doesn't have to, but it could enter into a legal battle where you need to be really smart. And there's so many different factors in this. I wish I could list them off. We try and make as much video and products for this. We do 30 hours of calls a week. I'm always talking to guys. We're sorting through problems all the time, which means we have a lot of information on what this whole entire process is. But man, I'm going to tell you something right now, that in that whole dealio, it's very hard to pinpoint down in a video exactly what those problems could be. Let's go over a couple of these problems. She could take the kid and not let you see him. Okay, and this moves into what a lot of people call as parental alienation, and it is parental alienation, but are the courts going to see it as that? She could be having issues around personality disorders. Maybe you're discovering because you're looking online while I'm going through this pain that she's a covert narcissist. Well, how does that affect your case? Are you going to text her about it? Are you going to get mad at her about it? Are you going to get in that argument with her about it? And to be honest, a lot of those arguments don't really have a value, if that makes sense. They don't have a value to how you're going to see your child again, how you're going to divide up property, whatever the situation is. And they may not have a value in court. If you pick up the phone and send her a text message and get in an argument and you act out in a certain way, that could be perceived as violence, that could be perceived as attacking, that could be perceived as stalking, it could be perceived as harassment. And different states have heavy laws on that. If you're in Oregon or certain counties in Oregon, California, or some other states, and you're sending those messages, it could be considered harassment and stalking, and these could move to not just civil court, they could move into criminal court. And you could start, let me just tell you, the difference between that is huge. And any time you have any sort of domestic violence thing, even if it's in civil court or a protective order in civil court, or CPS gets involved and they're investigating you in a way and you have false accusations there, if you have that, you're immediately spending money on defending yourself. It's going to cost you $10,000 to $60,000 right off the rip. And I have different videos that break that stuff down, just because you were not playing it right. So you got to get around other men that understand this process, and these other men that understand this process have been there, done that. They're actively in their court cases. They just got past their court cases, and they're working with guys like you on this. That is huge. If that comes from a church, if that comes from your buddies, if that comes from whatever, that is key. But it needs to be organized. And what I know from running my men's group is it has to be organized. There has to be order, and there has to be a standard of how you guys are interacting and talking to each other that is checked. If it is not, man, it moves into a bunch of male hysteria. Guys turn into all this stuff of gossip and rage and complaining about politics, which are all super important things, especially if you're going through this. But you need to get your custody. You need to get it back. So let's go into a couple of other things that you need to be careful about. So some things we want to watch out for if we're going through a divorce and a custody battle. Everybody's emotions are on high. They're heightened and they're pretty much insane, including you. Now that doesn't mean that you are always not functioning. It just means you're under stress. You're going to be reactive. You're going to be jumping at different things, and your ex is going to be too. So one of the things that you got to understand in this is that she's going to be stressed, you're going to be stressed, and massively stressed, and you're going to be reactive about different things. You're going to be hyper reactive on wanting to get back together, break up, stay broken apart, that she's evil. You have to see her as a bad person, and you also have to love her because she's the mother of your kids, and all these different things. You're going to be going through that all in one big thing. And here's the bottom line. Don't talk, okay? Keep separate. Once you guys are broken up, if this has failed, if this is failing and failed, these are very good reasons to just stop. Stop communication, keep it within lawyers. Yes, there's going to be things like so-and-so is sick and in pain and you need to go to the hospital with them, all these different emergencies. Cool, you can do that. These things are all mapped out in different ways, and this is again why you want to be in a men's group, but your lawyer's going to have information on it. If you have a lawyer, you're going to have men's groups that have information on it, but there's going to be family and friends and a bunch of people who are going to give you horrible advice in all of this, and they're going to tell you to just talk and work it out. Do not do that. You're not being weak. You're not being less of a man. You're doing the right thing to do these things. And this gets into another thing, and kind of another video I want to talk about, is if you're a man in this modern world, you can't do manly things anymore, whatever that even means. But this could be confronting somebody, talking things out, working things out like adults, as they always say. You can't do that. You go to jail in those ways. And one of the ways you go to jail as a man in this situation is to get yourself entangled in a custody battle where somebody starts attacking you and a woman takes advantage of certain leverages that she has in the court. You don't know what you're doing. You dig yourself in a hole and all of a sudden you're stuck in a protective order. You're underwater in legal fees. You have to accept a plea because you can't afford the $50 legal representation. And it's just all screwed up. Please watch my other videos on this. It's really, really important, okay? So let's review this really quick. A couple things that we got to do is we got to understand that this relationship is a mental struggle. This is very hard. In the long run in all of this is you want to take the best possible path to have the best possible life. This is super important. So the actions that I take now in how my relationship is dissolving is going to play out in how I'm going to be a father, how I'm going to make money, how I manage my vision, my future, my purpose, how I rebuild my life, or how I reunify my family, whatever the situation is. But the actions that I take now legally are going to be super important. That has to be determined. You have to understand just how important that is. Because of that, I need to understand that I need to look at this as, is my relationship functioning? Is it failing, or is it failed? Is it over, and what do I need to do? And if that is the case, if I'm in that failing and failed realm of the relationship, in that category, I need to start looking at legal options. When I'm looking at those legal options, it doesn't make me a bad man. It doesn't mean I have to hate my ex. It doesn't mean that I have to hate my wife if she's not yet my ex, that I'm doing something bad for my kids, or I'm doing the dark side of things. Our culture is so screwed up, we don't educate men on this, so they just think it's either or and they jump at it, and it's really terrible. Those three things that you could do right away that are very affordable and good for you to do, they are going to be going to the courthouse and looking at whatever divorce packet you have, what you need for custody, how these things are determined. That's super important. You're also going to interview 3 family law attorneys that specialize in cases that have to do with you, whether that's property disputes or custody disputes or high conflict or personality disorders. You need to talk about that, and those attorneys should have been practicing for a long time and not afraid to go in front of a court recently in this year. Meaning if they have a 20, 30-year career, but they weren't in court this last year, then I would actually avoid them. Not because you want to be in court, but they need to have their finger on the pulse of what those judges are talking about and have relationships with them and just know how the laws are being decided upon on a daily basis. The last thing you need to do is go down to your family courthouse and watch cases, whether that's on Zoom and you could be in the comfort of your own home, or whatever the situation is. You need to go out and look at how cases are being ruled upon. And from there, you're going to get a lot from that. The next thing that you need to do is you need to join a men's group or be around other men that are going through this. They can't just be yes men and agreeing with things that you like or giving you cheap advice. They need to understand just how bad things can get. Meaning when you go to them with a complicated problem, like you miss your ex and all these different things, but you just want to see your kid and make things up and talk about stuff, when you're putting yourself into a trap that could cost you massively legally, these men should be able to field that question, talk to you, understand the emotions of it, but also understand the legal process of it and how important this is. And this gets me to the last thing, is that if we're at the point when we need to start the legal battle, we need to stop communication. Now, that sounds harsh, that sounds mean, that might seem like you need to be a bad man in order to do that, but you need to halt all communication. You need to carry things through the court. When it comes to schools, when it comes to pickup times, when it comes to doctor's visits, all those things, yes, you can go, but you need to learn to put up a wall. This doesn't mean that you force yourself to be a bad person. You might start to enter into that, but this is why you need to be with a men's group or around other men who have been in these situations and they can help you through it, because they're going to tell you, well, yeah, you have to force that now, but it doesn't mean you don't love your ex, or you don't hope for the best, or you don't hope that in 6 months from now you can all work it out in some sort of way, whether that's separate or together or whatever the situation is. But you need to do that now. You need to have guys that really, really understand that. This is huge. Now, as I break this all down, let's get into my groups and let me tell you about them. So if you're going through this and you're entering into the legal battle, it is really tough. It's almost impossible for you to navigate and comprehend how hard this is going to be as a man. You're starting today, you might not think how you're going to go through 2 years of this or 18 months of this. You're just going, man, I don't want to hear 2 years. I'm shutting this video off. I want to find the easy guy who's telling me a different way of going through it. But it may not last that long, but this could be common. You need support. The Rising Man is something that I built that supports men. It's been around. My communities have been around for 15 years. We have helped thousands of men. We have 30 hours of calls a week that guys can come in on, for 90 minutes here and there, and they can go through their case, get the support they need. In those calls, we are going to prevent you from making massive mistakes. So for instance, let's say you pay $500 for some, multi-month package of the Rising Man. That is going to pay for itself in a week if you are entering into the legal battle, because it is going to help you pick the right lawyer. It's going to prevent you from sending a bad text message, sending an email to your lawyer that has to be questioned about, getting in a fight, and so on. And let's just break this down. I mean, bear with me here, because this is literally how it works, and you got to be prepared for it. A call to your attorney, it's going to cost you $100 to anywhere from $300, $400, something like that, depending on the attorney. An email might cost $35 to $50, $60 to $90. It depends on your attorney. Filing a motion or something like this is going to cost you hundreds of dollars, and an appearance in court is going to be something like $750 an hour, or just to show up and give the mandatory 2 hours or whatever. Or it could be $3,000. It could even be $7,000. Man, I'll tell you this, to prepare for a hearing or deposition, it's going to cost you, man. It's going to cost you like $5,000 to $7,000. So the key in all of legal stuff is to avoid those things as much as possible. Avoid unnecessary cost. And if you pay something with the Rising Man, like the monthly charge, or again, multiple months, or these sorts of things, and it costs you a couple $100 or $500 or whatever it is, here's the deal. You are going to save that almost immediately in the first week of your conflict by hiring the right attorney, not bogging your attorney down with emails, calls, filing motions. Motions are filed against you that they need to rebuttal on, court appearances, and these things. Everything is going to be much tighter. When you can't see your kids and your ex is keeping them from you, you are going to be instructed what you need to do by the guys in the group. There's 30 hours of calls a week. There's guys that are dedicated to helping you, including myself, and that is all included in the prices that you get. Not only that, all of your probability for getting custody and winning go way up because we have so much experience. I mean, there's guys actively going through stuff any given moment that are going to help you. They're going to talk about mistakes they made. They're going to talk about mistakes they didn't make. They're going to talk to you about how they won, and I'm going to talk to you about how I won. Not only that, it's going to help you with all of the mental stress and confusion that goes through this. It is literally the best deal in town. It's one of those things where I tell guys over and over again, I heavily urge you to make the right decisions in this, to not have your life tortured, to have guidance through it that is going to help you through every step of that process. And it's going to do that, whether that's the emotional and mental support, the legal support through it, the navigating the laws, how to reunify with your kids, how to be a dad again, how to get your body back, how to get your mind back, all these different things. Why wouldn't you talk to guys actively doing it rather than just buying into social media people with presence that aren't actually working with you on it? I mean, this is what we do. We work directly with you. It's a huge thing. In any case, if you're interested in any of that, check the links down below. And this process goes on because there's something about the legal process which is massive, and you need to absolutely know, because it takes a long time. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, And it's about your kids, it's about your life. And if you screw up the hurry up and wait process, man, you mess up. It is torture. It's a great way to absolutely destroy and ruin your life. So what do we do when we're stuck in the legal process? Well, that's what next video is all about.